Alright, what's up guys? Got another idea of what if Anakin Skywalker was Devilman, a sort of crossover between Star Wars and, well, Devilman. So this is going to be part 1. I'm splitting it into 2 parts because it got kind of long while writing it. So if you like Star Wars or this type of content, expect more what ifs or fanfics, lore videos, comics, video essays, reviews, and just all things Star Wars. So for this to work, we have to set it up as this is a crossover type what if of Star Wars and an anime and manga series known as Devilman. It's been around for like 50 years, but with the most recent incarnation being Devilman Crybaby. So it follows Akira and Ryo, who work together as best friends to rid the world of demons and save humanity. Demons merge with living beings, and Akira merges with Amon, king of demons, and becomes a Devilman. And in this story, for it to make sense by combining them, Anakin is taking the place of Akira, and I'm going to make the setting of the Star Wars galaxy, but Ryo will exist, and so will the demons in the galaxy. Now, I don't want to spoil the Devilman story at the very beginning for everything to make sense, so it's going to play out as the what if progresses. But if you want to know the Devilman story, then watch Devilman Crybaby on Netflix. It's dark as fuck with a lot of gore and nudity, but it's amazing. But with all that out of the way, why don't we just dive right on in. Anakin was 8 years old. Life was tough, but it was the same every day. Wake up, work on his new droid C-3PO to help his mother, then go to Watto's shop. Once the workday was over, he went home, helped his mom with chores, and then worked on his pod racer. But after, he would go out and play with his friends. But his best friend was Ryo. He was an interesting kid. He didn't have any parents, so Anakin guessed he was an orphan. They met a couple years prior when Anakin was working on his pod racer and Ryo appeared out of nowhere and collapsed from exhaustion. Anakin took him back home and Shmi nursed him back to health. Ryo woke up and thanked them, asking him where he was, and Anakin joked that they were the greatest planet in the galaxy, Tatooine. Ryo laughed, and from that day forward, they were inseparable. Ryo couldn't remember much of anything before he met Anakin, so the Skywalkers helped set him up to live at a local orphanage. It wasn't great, but it beat being a slave. As always, Anakin and Ryo met up and talked about life and everything in between. Anakin wanted to help living things and beings, but also wanted to go off from time to time, but also wanted to free his mother. That was the point of pod racing. Ryo wanted to see Anakin succeed, but was a genius in his own right, much smarter than Anakin, but also a bit of a cynic. One time Anakin saw a small dying animal and wanted to nurse it back to health, but Ryo wanted to kill it, saying it wouldn't survive anyway. They had their ups and downs, but they were best friends. The days flew by and another year passed, and the events of the Phantom Menace played out as normal. Qui-Gon sensed Anakin was the chosen one, as he took Qui-Gon and Padme back to his home. Along the way they met Ryo. Qui-Gon sensed Anakin was the chosen one, but he sensed something about Ryo as well. Something he couldn't really explain, but he pushed it to the back of his mind. Anakin won the pod race and was able to free himself, but not his mother. Qui-Gon said he would train Anakin as a Jedi, something that Skywalker had always dreamed of. He tearfully said goodbye to his mother, but also to his best friend. Ryo told Anakin they would meet again for sure, and Anakin told him that he wouldn't have it any other way. The timeline of the Phantom Menace plays out as normal, with Qui-Gon's death and Obi-Wan training Anakin. But now, years pass and Anakin is now 17 years old, Padawan to Obi-Wan Kenobi. He and his master had just returned to Coruscant from a mission on a planet in the Mid-Rim. He wanted to help people, but Anakin found his mind wandering again. All he could think about these days was helping people, becoming a stronger Jedi, and Padme. More so Padme, as she had been on his mind ever since they met on Tatooine. That got him thinking about the desert planet, thinking about his mother, but also about his childhood friend Ryo. He told each other they'd always be best friends, but he hadn't seen him since he left to become a Jedi. As Anakin and Obi-Wan came back to the Jedi Temple, Anakin wanted a breath of fresh air, so that night he snuck out of his room and the temple to go explore the lower levels of Coruscant. As he made his escape, he borrowed a speeder. He would try to return it, and he headed for the lower levels. As he was using the speeder, Anakin saw someone he thought looked familiar who was staring at him. It was just for an instant, but Skywalker would notice that hair from anywhere. He turned the speeder around and brought it to a stop in front of this person. Anakin smiled and he got off the speeder and hugged his childhood best friend Ryo. They embraced each other in a hug that brought back memories, and after Anakin asked how he was. However, Ryo said this wasn't the best place to talk and he jumped into his own personal speeder asking Anakin to join. Skywalker obliged and hopped in the passenger seat and Ryo headed for the lower levels. During the ride, Ryo explained how he had left Tatooine and explored the galaxy, getting an education in the process and becoming a galaxy-renowned professor. Anakin was surprised, but not really. Ryo had always been a genius, but his friend's face became serious and he told Anakin that he was studying something and made a discovery that would change everything. Anakin, ever since you left to become a Jedi, I was interested in the Force, even though I couldn't use it myself. I studied its applications, both light and dark, Ryo told him. Anakin was apprehensive at the term dark, but he listened. Ryo continued, I made a discovery about an ancient species that's lived for eons throughout the galaxy. They survived by merging with living beings, and now they're making a return. They're dark side beasts with only death and destruction on their mind. I've discovered that demons exist. Anakin had heard tales of an ancient dark race, but he thought it was just a myth. To think that something like that actually existed, Anakin was shocked. But Rio wasn't done. We have to stop them, Anakin. You and me, and there's only one way. I don't know, Rio, is it really that big of a threat? The Chosen One asked. Rio looked at his friend. They will kill everything and everyone you care about. They will bring an end to life in the galaxy. Only you and me can stop this. The Jedi, the Sith, they don't know, but I do. We can stop it. You just have to trust me, Rio spoke. This was all Anakin needed to hear. He asked what they needed to do, and Rio told him that they were going to a party called Sabbath. They needed a place that would be depraved enough for a devil to appear. Anakin was kind of freaked out, but went along with it. Rio flew the speeder to the lowest depths Anakin had ever been, and brought him to an abandoned building. They hopped down, Anakin followed Rio's lead until he heard music. And when they entered through the door, it was a massive party. Men, women, and everything in between from all different walks of life and races, dancing away, doing who knows what. They walked inside and Anakin was blinded by bright lights and loud music, but he held his bearings, and suddenly a female Twi'lek wearing, well, not much of anything, walked up to the two. Anakin looked away but kept one eye on her. He tried to think of Padme, but his attention was on the girl in front of him. She asked if they wanted to have fun, and Rio laughed and said Anakin's girl just dumped him. The Twi'lek laughed and popped something into her mouth and proceeded to kiss Anakin. He unknowingly swallowed it and wondered what it was, but was dazed from the kiss. Rio grabbed Anakin by the arm, and the two went further into the crowd. As Anakin looked back, he saw the female Twi'lek smiling, waving. After about an hour, Anakin felt the effects of whatever he took kick in, and he started to feel funny. He began hallucinating and his vision was blurry. He was high as fuck. Rio told him the real reason they were here was to have a devil take over Anakin. In his dazed state, Anakin was confused, and that's when Rio grabbed his lightsaber and ran into the crowd, igniting it, cutting down everyone in sight. Anakin saw this and tried to stop Rio, but the other partygoers eventually knocked the two down and began beating on them. Anakin managed to get his lightsaber away from Rio, but about a dozen people had been butchered. Anakin looked at his friend in shock, but he saw Rio recording him and saying, "Amon, now's your chance. Possess Anakin Skywalker." All of a sudden his vision went dark, and the Chosen One felt like he was overtaken by something. Whatever it was, it wanted control, but Anakin's heart won over the demon vying for control, and Anakin maintained his sanity, but transformed into Amon. He roared with an intense ferocity as he looked around. Other demons had appeared and began a bloodbath by killing everyone in sight. No one was spared from the carnage, and his enraged state transformed Anakin went on a rage against the demons, killing and ripping them apart one by one until he was the only one left. That's when Anakin passed out and Rio took him, and they quickly escaped the gruesome scene. The next morning, Anakin awoke at Rio's apartment and he felt different. He got up and looked out the window and saw his reflection. He was different. He was taller, more muscular. In fact, everything physically about him felt different, felt better. He felt stronger, faster. He wanted to test his body out, but that's when he remembered last night and the carnage that ensued. He put a hand to his face, and he felt a ferocity inside him he had never felt before. That's when Rio walked in and told him what happened, that he transformed Anakin into a demon, but Anakin's heart won over the demon vying for control and now had its powers. And Rio told Anakin he was a Devilman, a being who won over a demon and now had its powers, and Anakin now had the powers of Amon. Anakin didn't know what to think, but he remembered the blood and violence from the previous nights, and he got lost in thought. His mind wandered, wondering from what the Jedi would think, to wondering about the demons and what they did. He decided Rio was right. The demons were dangerous, and he and his best friend were going to stop them, no matter the cost. Anakin told Rio he would join him on his journey, and his childhood friend smiled. The two made a plan. Anakin wouldn't tell anyone. He would keep up with his Jedi training, but on the side sneak out to meet up with Rio and get used to his new Devilman powers and wipe out any demons they found. This continued for the next 2 years until Anakin was 19 and the events of Attack of the Clones ensued. Padme's life was in danger and Anakin and Obi-Wan were tasked to be her bodyguards. The same events would transpire with the two falling in love. The clone army would still be discovered and Obi-Wan would be taken on Geonosis. During this time, Anakin would not have contacted Rio as much, and he would get suspicious, tracking Anakin to Naboo. He would watch Anakin and Padme from afar, and Anakin would have had nightmares about his mother, just like in the normal timeline. Anakin and Padme would go to Tatooine to find his mother, with Rio following them. They would arrive on that desert planet and visit Watto, and then find Klieg Larsen in the moisture farm. Rio would keep his distance and during the night see Anakin sneak off to go find his mother, taken by the Tusken Raiders. Anakin would go to their camp and wouldn't find Shmi. He would search everywhere until he heard her voice. But he also noticed how everything was quiet, and there wasn't a Tusken Raider in sight. No men, women, or children. They were all just gone. He heard his mother's voice again, telling him to turn around, and to come to her. He turned around and he saw her face. Anakin breathed a sigh of relief and he walked to hug Shmi, but she yelled for him to stay away. She was already dead. He didn't understand what she meant until he got closer and saw her face, attached to a larger body, along with many other faces of humans, Tusken Raiders, and other species, all moaning and groaning in pain and agony, either begging for death or to be set free. The Chosen One couldn't believe his eyes. He staggered towards his mother. She was right there, so close. But Rio appeared behind him and told him to finish the monster off. Every one of those faces were dead, and the victims of this thing. The thing in question began killing the faces by ripping them apart. Shmi told Anakin, "Annie, look at the man you've become. Look at how big, look how strong you've become. I'm so proud of you, but I'm already gone. Do what you must and end this demonic abomination." With tears in his eyes, Anakin transformed and at blinding speeds launched forward, ripping the demon in half, shocking it but killing it, and his mother at the same time, all the while roaring in anger. And across the galaxy, Yoda and Palpatine could feel Anakin's pain, but also a darker, more monstrous feeling than they had ever felt before. He slumped to his knees, to tears, and Rio walked up to him, placing a hand on his shoulder, saying that it needed to be done, but they had to go. However, as Rio told Anakin that, he had a tear run down one side of his face. He was sorry about Shmi, but emotions had never really been his strong suit. But he realized he was looking at the demon, and a shiver ran down his spine. Was he crying for his best friend's mom, who was a mother figure to him as well? Or was he crying for the demon that Anakin killed? He didn't know, and it scared him. He would have to figure that out. Anakin and Rio left and went their separate ways, agreeing to meet back up after everything was settled. Anakin went back to Padme and told her, They're all dead. Not just my mother, but every single one of them. The men, women, and children, all slaughtered." She didn't know what to say and hugged Anakin. When she first saw him after all these years, she could hardly recognize him. He was taller, more muscular, and just more attractive than she could possibly imagine, and made her even fall harder for Skywalker. But his new appearance didn't shock just Padme, but everyone that knew him. Obi-Wan and the other Jedi were confused at his overnight change, but he just chalked it up to a sudden growth spurt. But the Masters were more weary, especially Mace Windu. But it didn't change his training, and once Anakin and Padme go to Geonosis, the events of Attack of the Clones unfold, and the Clone Wars begin. And just like in canon, Anakin and Padme get married. But while that's happening, Rio was on Tatooine. He never left, and was confused about what was happening. He felt like something was off, and he traversed through the desert, until he came across another Tusken Raider tribe, and saw a statue of himself. He was even more confused. He made contact with the Tusken Raiders, who, when they saw him, began worshipping him. Rio spent some time there until he made a discovery about himself that would change everything. So that was the end of part 1. Part 2 will be out in the next few days, so be sure to keep an eye out for that. So this is my first crossover between Star Wars and more of a unique series that you don't really see people talk about on YouTube. And I kind of wanted to see what would happen if you combine Star Wars and Devilman. And the direction I plan to take the story in, especially in part 2 and near the end, gets dark as fuck. But if this does well, I might do more like crossover type stuff in the future. Just gotta have it make sense. Like combine Star Wars and whatever other medium I'm talking about into like one cohesive story and universe or galaxy rather, that actually makes sense and you can technically see it happen. But yeah, that's just my thoughts on like the crossover type stuff, because you don't really see anyone else doing this. But yeah, I mean, I enjoyed making this, and let me know down below if you want to see more stuff like this. But with all that out of the way, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, be sure to leave a like, comment, and subscribe. Go check out my other channels. That'll be down in the description below. But with that, I will catch you all in the next video. Peace.